Okay, picking up some pretty strong signals from the sources you all sent in. Seems like you're really looking to understand narcissistic personality disorder, huh?
Yeah.
Well, you've come to the right place
Right.
for a deep dive into NPD.
A deep dive it is.
I'm excited about this one.
Yeah, it's a term that we hear so much these days, right?
Absolutely.
But clinically, it's a really specific diagnosis, and it impacts, well,
yeah,
individuals and really everyone around them.
everyone around them, yeah.
Yeah.
So to unpack all of this, we've got two really great sources, okay?
Awesome.
We'll be looking at a video from the Cleveland Clinic,
Okay.
you know, the medical masterminds, to give us that clear clinical overview.
Love it.
And then we'll switch gears, okay?
Sounds good.
And dive into a really insightful article from Your Tango that explores how NPD plays out in real-life relationships.
Having those two perspectives, I think, is going to be so helpful
Yeah.
because, you know, the clinical and the personal, because NPD isn't just an individual's isolated behavior.
Right.
It's really about how it impacts, well, all the connections.
The ripples, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so our mission today is to give you the knowledge to spot these narcissistic traits.
Okay.
And really understand how they can impact you.
Yeah.
But before we go any further,
Right.
huge disclaimer here.
Yeah.
We're not in the business of diagnosing anyone here, all right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Our diagnosis
We're-
should always be left
to the pros.
mental health professionals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start unpacking NPD.
Let's do it.
The Cleveland Clinic explains that it's way more than just being vain, okay?
Right.
This is a serious mental health condition that affects how people see themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also how they relate to others.
Right.
Their definition really resonated with me. NPD is when someone has this distorted view of themselves and their importance, and they struggle to relate to others in a healthy way.
I think that's a really clear and simple definition.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
And then they highlight this phrase that I think captures like the essence of NPD. Okay.
Yep.
People with NPD often see themselves as the most important person in the room.
Yeah. Have you ever been in a room with someone like that?
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's like you can just feel it.
You can, yeah.
That need to be the center of attention.
It's like they're constantly one-upping you or minimizing your accomplishments. Have you ever experienced that?
Totally. And you know what's interesting? NPD is on a spectrum, right?
Okay.
So not everyone who shows some of these traits actually has the disorder.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Because it's like any personality trait, right?
Right.
There's a range.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we know when we're dealing with, like, you know, just a big ego versus something more serious?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it?
Totally.
Well, the Cleveland Clinic breaks down 8 key traits
Okay.
that are particularly common in people with NPD.
8 traits, okay.
And they get really specific about what those look like.
Perfect. Okay, so let's break down these 8 traits.
Let's do it.
But let's not just list them out, you know. Let's
Right.
make this useful.
Mm-hmm.
So how about for each trait, I pull out something from the video that really grabbed me.
Yeah.
And then you, our amazing expert here, translate that into what it actually looks like in real life.
I like it.
The why behind it and what the potential fallout could be.
I can do that, yeah.
Okay, are you in?
I'm in.
Okay, awesome.
I always enjoy your takes on these things because you always find those relatable nuggets.
Ooh, stuff. I do.
Mm.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay.
All right, let's start with trait number 1, an overinflated sense of self-importance.
Okay.
Okay, the video mentions that this can actually be super stressful for someone with NPD because they have this intense need for everything to be perfect.
Yeah. And when things don't go their way,
Oh, I can imagine that does not go well.
no.
Mm.
And that's where it gets really interesting because that need for perfectionism actually comes from a place of deep insecurity and a really fragile sense of self-worth.
Oh, wow.
So even though they might seem incredibly confident on the surface,
Okay.
underneath, they're terrified of failure and criticism.
That's almost, I don't know,
Yeah.
sad, you know?
Yeah.
It's like they're building up this facade to protect themselves.
Exactly. And that facade can really damage their relationships.
I bet.
Imagine trying to have a genuine connection with someone who always needs to be the center of attention
Right.
and can't handle any feedback.
That would be exhausting.
It would be exhausting.
Okay, what's next on the list?
Okay, trait number 2 is a need for excessive admiration.
Ah, yes.
Right.
The classic attention seeker.
Attention seeker, yeah.
The video talks about how people with NPD base their self-worth on how other people see them.
Mm.
They need constant validation and praise to feel good about themselves.
And if they don't get that admiration, they might get envious of others who are receiving it. Or even project their own insecurity by believing everyone else is jealous of them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It creates a very skewed view of the world.
I'm sensing a pattern here.
What's that?
A lot of insecurity.
Yeah.
And a need to control how people perceive them.
I think you're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about trait number 3?
Trait number 3 is a sense of entitlement.
Ooh, that one sounds like it could be especially tough in relationships.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because they see themselves as superior.
Right.
The video mentions they often have these unreasonable expectations of everyone around them.
Mm-hmm.
Like they expect special treatment
Yeah.
or for people to just automatically do what they want.
Exactly. And that's why boundaries are so crucial with someone with NPD.
Boundaries, okay.
If you don't set clear boundaries,
Yeah.
they might just keep pushing and pushing.
Right.
Until they get their needs met, no matter the cost to you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it's almost like they lack the ability to understand or even care about other people's perspectives.
Which brings us to trait number 4, superficial relationships.
Ooh, this one really stood out to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. The video explains that people with NPD often surround themselves with people that they see as high status. It's like they're curating their social circle to boost their own image.
That's such a great observation, and what's really fascinating here is that they might not even be genuinely interested in those people.
Really?
It's more about what those relationships say about them.
Okay.
It's all about appearances.
But wouldn't that get lonely?
Oh, absolutely.
Like constantly having to put on this show.
And that's the tragic irony of NPD.
Right.
Is that deep down, they're often incredibly lonely and isolated,
Wow.
even if they seem to have a ton of friends.
Okay. On to trait number 5. Takes advantage of others to achieve their goals.
Oof.
Ouch.
This one's tough.
Yeah.
And it's a direct result of their lack of empathy and sense of entitlement.
Yeah.
They really see others as tools to be used for their own gain, even if it hurts those people in the process.
It's like they have zero conscience.
Yeah, and the video even mentions that they might not even realize how damaging their actions are.
I can see that.
It's how they're wired.
I've definitely had experiences where I felt manipulated by someone, and looking back, it makes you question everything. You know?
It does,
Yeah.
and that's why it's so important to recognize these traits and protect yourself.
Right.
This is not about judging them as a person.
Right.
It's about understanding the disorder
Right.
and taking steps to ensure your own well-being.
This is getting pretty heavy.
Yeah, it is.
Should we take a break and come back to the remaining traits?
Yeah.
And the Your Tango article?
Let's do that.
Okay, sounds good.
Take a breath.
Yeah, we'll be right back.
Okay, so where were we?
Let's jump back into the world of NPD.
Okay.
We left off talking to some of those more manipulative traits.
Yeah, right?
So let's see what other insights this Cleveland Clinic video has for us.
Sounds good.
Okay, bringing up trait number 6. A lack of empathy.
Ooh, that's a big one.
This one feels like it's at the core of so many relationship struggles.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the video points out how people with NPD really struggle to recognize other people's needs,
Right.
especially in romantic relationships.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt like you're constantly trying to get your partner to understand your feelings?
Oh, yeah.
But it's like they just don't get it.
I've been there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that inability to truly listen and empathize,
Right.
it can be a big red flag.
And it's important to remember
Yeah.
it's not always a conscious choice.
Right.
You know, we're talking about a personality disorder here,
Okay.
a deeply ingrained pattern.
Okay.
Their brains are literally wired differently
Wow.
when it comes to empathy.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point. It helps to kind of shift the perspective from like
Right,
they're
yeah.
being intentionally hurtful to like,
Yeah, yeah.
this is how their brain is wired.
It is.
Okay, trait number 7, resistant to change.
Okay.
The video uses the phrase, processing big changes can be difficult,
Right.
I bet, especially when change involves having to compromise
Yeah.
or admit they were wrong.
Exactly. Someone with NPD might become really avoidant
Yeah.
or deflect blame rather than truly look inward
Yeah.
and reflect on themselves.
Which makes total sense given their need to maintain this perfect image, you know.
It does.
They're not going to readily admit they messed up.
Right. And this resistance to change can create a lot of friction in relationships
Yeah.
because growth requires a willingness to adapt and evolve. And
Right.
that can be a major hurdle for someone with NPD.
Okay, last one, trait number 8, hyper-focused on fantasies.
Okay.
Now, this is where things get a little Hollywood, right?
Ooh, tell me more.
Okay, the video mentions fantasies about career, social status, wealth, physical appearance.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they're always chasing this perfect, idealized version of themselves.
Yeah, it's that classic keeping up with the Joneses,
Yeah.
but taken to the extreme, right? You might notice this if someone is constantly comparing themselves to others
Okay.
or always striving for this external validation,
Right.
like needing the newest phone or the biggest house
Yeah.
or tons of Instagram followers.
Yeah. Okay.
You know,
That's a good one.
that constant chase for external validation can be really damaging, both to the individual and the people around them.
And exhausting.
Exhausting, yeah.
And sounds exhausting.
Like never being satisfied with what you have.
Right.
Because you're always chasing this impossible standard.
Yeah, and often that standard is based on, those superficial measures of success.
Right.
It's about the image, not the substance.
Exactly.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground with these 8 traits.
Yeah, we have.
But you might be wondering,
Mm-hmm.
how does this actually affect me?
Right.
How does NPD show up in my relationships?
That's the question.
Well, the Your Tango article we have,
yes.
it dives into this with a brilliant analogy
Okay.
from Dr. Ramani Durvasel,
Oh, I love her.
a leading expert on narcissism.
Yeah.
This purple dress analogy has me intrigued.
Okay.
Can you break it down for me and for our listeners who haven't read the article?
Of course.
Okay, cool.
So it's called The Purple Dress Dilemma.
Okay.
And Dr. Ramani, she shares the story from her childhood,
Okay.
where she had this chance to wear this amazing purple dress
Oh, wow.
for a school play.
Okay.
She really wanted it.
Okay.
But in the end, she decided not to wear it.
Wait, why would she turn down the purple dress?
Because she grew up in a community where
Ah.
standing out was seen as risky.
Okay.
And so she learned to kind of suppress her own desires and stay in the background to
Yeah.
avoid criticism and judgment.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah. And here's the connection to NPD.
Okay.
Narcissists, often unconsciously,
Hmm.
do this to the people around them.
What do you mean?
They silence those around them,
Mm-hmm.
so no one outshines them.
Ooh, that's deep.
They become the only one allowed to wear the purple dress.
Whoa, it's like they're not just competing.
Right.
They're actively trying to prevent anyone else from even entering the competition.
Exactly. And that can have such a devastating impact on the other person's self-esteem,
Yeah.
their creativity, their
Yeah,
very
but-
sense of self.
yeah.
So think about it.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt that purple dress feeling? That sense of being silenced?
Oh, yeah.
Or having your needs dismissed in a relationship?
I think most of us have,
Yeah?
to some degree.
Yeah.
Maybe not as extreme as Dr. Ramani's experience, but those subtle ways in which we're made to feel less than, or our voice doesn't matter.
It's true.
And it can be those small everyday interactions
Yeah.
that chip away at your confidence over time.
And what's so insidious about NPD
Okay.
is that the narcissist often doesn't even realize they're doing it.
Wow.
They're so caught up in their own needs
Right.
and their own distorted reality
Right.
that they're completely blind to the impact they're having on others.
So how does this purple dress analogy
Yeah.
connect to those specific NPD traits we talked about earlier?
It really highlights several of them, like
Yep.
the lack of empathy, the
Right.
need for admiration, the tendency to take advantage of others.
Okay.
The narcissists need to be the center of attention, to be the one wearing that metaphorical purple dress.
Yeah.
It can drive them to manipulate and control those around them.
It's like they're constantly trying to dim everyone else's light so their own can shine brighter.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And that brings us to a really important point that Dr. Ramani makes in the article.
Okay.
This idea of the lost potential
Mm.
of those who have been silenced by narcissists.
This is where it gets heartbreaking, right?
It is.
It's not just about the individual who's suffering. It's about all the things they could have achieved,
Right.
all the joy they could have brought into the world if they hadn't been held back,
Yeah.
if they hadn't had their purple dress taken away.
Yeah. It's a ripple effect.
Okay.
NPD doesn't just impact the person with the disorder, it impacts everyone they come into contact with.
Wow.
And that's why it's so crucial to
Wow.
understand this condition, not to label people as bad or evil,
Right.
but to recognize the complexity of the issue
Yeah.
and the far-reaching consequences.
It's about understanding the why behind the behavior, not just judging the behavior itself.
Exactly. And speaking of understanding,
Yeah.
sometimes just having this knowledge, grasping these dynamics,
Okay.
it can be incredibly empowering.
I agree.
It can help us see patterns in our own relationships
Okay.
and make more informed choices about who we let into our lives.
I totally agree. Knowledge is power,
It is.
especially when it comes to navigating these complex relationship dynamics.
Absolutely. So what can our listeners do
Yeah.
if they feel like some of this is hitting a little too close to home?
Well, that's where we can offer some support. If you're feeling like you need some guidance or just want to explore this further,
Yeah.
we encourage you to check out the resources we provided in our channel profile.
Yes, go check it out.
And we also have a free mental wellness workbook and journal that you can download
Oh, nice.
to help you process your thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
It's a great tool for self-reflection and can help you start to identify those patterns in your own life.
And sometimes, just having that space to reflect
Yeah.
can be so helpful
Yeah.
for processing everything.
Plus, we've got free access to some incredible audiobooks that dive even deeper into NPD
Yeah.
and its impact. And these resources can give you a more comprehensive understanding of the disorder
Right.
and provide you with some really helpful coping strategies.
Yeah, I think the combination of those resources is really powerful.
Uh-huh.
You've got the workbook and the journal for self-reflection,
Right.
and then the audiobooks for that deeper dive into the topic.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a great way to approach it from different angles.
So this is a fantastic collection of resources
It is.
and all completely free.
The best kind.
You'll find all of that and more in our channel profile, so make sure you head over there and check it out.
Yeah, and don't stop there, okay?
Oh.
Head over to the pinned comments and you'll find even more ways to connect with others who might be going through similar experiences.
Yeah, because remember, you're not alone in this.
You're lying.
Seeking support and understanding is a sign of strength, not weakness.
So true.
It's true.
And sometimes, just knowing that you're not alone
Yeah,
can make such a big difference.
totally.
It can be so validating to connect with others and share your experiences.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's interesting how both of our sources today,
Mm-hmm.
even though they come from totally different angles, one clinical, one more personal,
Yeah.
both emphasized that deep sense of loneliness
Right.
that often lies at the heart of NPD.
At the heart of it, yeah.
Yeah. At the beginning of this deep dive, we were talking about how people with NPD can seem so confident,
Right.
even arrogant.
Mm-hmm.
But now seeing it through this lens of insecurity and fear,
Yeah.
it makes sense that they might be deeply unhappy.
Right, and the Cleveland Clinic video even mentioned that NPD is linked to a higher risk of depression and suicidal thoughts.
Wow. That's a really sobering thought.
It is.
It really shifts the perspective.
Yeah.
It's not about judging someone for being self-centered.
Right.
It's about recognizing that there might be a lot of pain underneath that surface.
Exactly, and that's why I think it's so crucial
Yeah.
to approach this topic with compassion and understanding.
Okay.
It's not about excusing harmful behavior,
Right.
but it's about recognizing the complexity of the human experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we wrap up our NPD deep dive,
Okay.
let's recap the key takeaways for our listener.
Okay. I like it.
What are the most important things to remember about NPD?
Well, I think first and foremost, NPD is way more than just selfishness or vanity.
Okay.
It's a complex personality disorder with very specific traits and patterns of behavior.
And those traits, like that lack of empathy and the need for constant admiration,
Yeah.
they could really have a ripple effect on everyone in the narcissist's life.
Absolutely.
It's not just about the individual, it's about the relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding those dynamics can help us protect
Yeah,
ourselves
right.
and set those healthy boundaries.
Exactly.
We also learned that even though it can seem like people with NPD have it